Welcome, heroes and villains, to the Fjook Enterprises YouTube channel. Today, we are at Fjook's table and we are discussing a simple question: what is Pathfinder? And to help me answer that, I have someone who I feel is an expert on the subject of what is Pathfinder, Giorgio.
Well, thank you. I'm nothing of an expert. I mean, I played it a lot, but to call me an expert, it is an overstatement. Though I'm flattered by the compliment.
So, who makes Pathfinder?
It is actually made by Paizo, as I'm aware, because of course in Italian is that everything is published by someone else. That's called Giochi Uniti, but I believe the main publisher is Paizo.
How did Paizo go from creating the Dungeon and Dragon magazines to Pathfinder?
As far as I'm aware, because of course I don't know anyone working at Paizo or that previously worked for Dungeons and Dragons, I believe that they were unhappy with the mechanics and the amount of feats, talents, rules, etc. So they decided to create this sort of D&D 3.75, which was, in their opinion, a little bit smoother and more accessible. Of course, now we got Pathfinder 2 and D&D 5th edition that, of course, are way more smoother in that way because let's be serious, D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder 1st edition, of course, they require a lot of studying and a lot of reading because they are both built, even though, as you said, one comes after the other. So you could say one is the parent and the other one is the offspring.
Couldn't one just take why does it take so much time to study Pathfinder to play it? Couldn't one just buy the core rulebook and use that?
Yeah, sure, but I don't know if you're aware of the width of D&D 5th edition core rulebook. It's almost half an inch. This is Pathfinder, just the core rulebook. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, you could basically be satisfied and knowing what your race grants you and what your class does. But if you're going to be a dungeon master, of course, you need to know everything, because you can just wing the fact that you got a druid in your class and you only studied the fighter. I mean, also if you're building combats, encounters, NPCs, etc., also you need to have a look at the game master guide, the bestiary, that of course is more work and a lot of pages. Let's see, the core rulebook, which actually almost everyone should have if they want to start playing, it's about 600 pages. It's a small novel.
Doesn't Pathfinder also have the stuff available for free by Paizo online?
Yeah, I mean, they got something, but they're never going to give you the core rulebook for free. I mean, there have been humble bundles, etc. But of course, that was a free donation, so that wasn't really actually free if you have a heart, basically. But yeah, of course, you got quick starts almost for everything nowadays, given how the pandemic forced us to find new hobbies, being closed at home and playing online with friends. For example, one of my best mates actually started to understand what Call of Cthulhu was, changing the subject a little bit because there was a free quick starter available. And then after he got a basic knowledge of what an RPG was, because it was his first time playing overall, he decided to buy manuals and stuff. Maybe he would start writing something on his own. That could happen as well with Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, Starfinder, whatever you wish.
So as most people, as there are a lot of people who have only played 5th edition, What's the difference between 5th edition and Pathfinder?
Well, D&D 5th edition, I believe it's easier on you with the math. Because let's say, for example, I'm playing a paladin, right? In one of my campaigns of D&D, I'm playing a paladin. It gains a second attack at 5th level. That means that in 5th edition, I attack twice in my turn with the same bonus attack modifier. Is that correct?
Yeah.
In Pathfinder, it's not. Because, for example, you make the first attack with a +5 bonus modifier, +6, sorry. The second one is just +1. So you roll 2 dice and do different kinds of math around it. Then maybe you got feats that apply only on the first attack and not on the second one. Maybe you are dual wielding. It's way more hard on you on the math. So if you're not strong on the numbers, you're gonna have a kind of a hard time leveling after level 5, because level 1 to 4, I mean, it's almost easy on anybody. But as long as you got more fits, of course, because you gain one fit every odd level. So level 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. As I'm aware, in D&D 5th, you can choose a fit at level 4, or you can have an ability improvement. I mean, you already have 2 fits on Pathfinder and just 1, maybe. 2 if you're playing a human in D&D 5th. So it's a little bit more crunchy to get around it than it is, for example, D&D 5th edition as you asked, or Pathfinder 2, because I do believe that these last 2 editions were actually built around the idea that they needed to be easier, so that people who just wanted to start out with a quick starter, as you said before, or free content available at their publishers' websites, could easily do that without many restrictions, or just an easy way to start playing.
So why would anyone play Pathfinder if it's more crunchy than 50?
Mainly because of childish nostalgia. I mean, this is the first system that I consistently played, because it was the one that my friends knew more, so that when I started playing with them, of course, this was the system that everybody knew at the table. So that's the one with which I started. So, I mean, you grow fond of the pictures in the manual, you grow fond of the characters. Also, in both D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder 1, you got more core manuals. You got more ways to customize your characters, also with third-party builds and classes and homebrew here and there. Of course, having been around for more time, of course, people spent more time, because the games are older, building stuff that they enjoyed and that they put out in the world for everybody to enjoy. Meanwhile, Pathfinder and D&D, of course, the 5th edition, of course, they are putting out manuals pretty steadily, but they are not comparable yet. But maybe not maybe for sure. That's just because of actual age of the 2 games, of the 2 editions of the games.
Since you have referred to Pathfinder as D&D 3.75 a few times this video, does that mean that you can use D&D 3.5 stuff in Pathfinder?
I never did. I know people that did. But I mean, basically, if you take a character sheet, base example from D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder, they're basically the same. What changes may be some skill name, but you can easily adapt that or reskin that. So basically, yeah, you can, but you need to know, of course, where you are getting stuff from and how you want, on what you want to custom that. I mean, that's the bare minimum, because of course some mechanics may be different. I'm not that expert on D&D point 5 on my end, but of course there are things you have to take into account when switching games or picking a character and putting in another setting. Of course, you need to reevaluate stuff, maybe erase something or modify something. Maybe you feel like this fit that you can find on Pathfinder but doesn't exist on D&D could fit the idea of the NPC or the monster on the character that you have. And you can add it. But of course, if you want to keep things balanced, you can just add. For example, a whole mechanic because existed in D&D 3.5, you have to take something out in Pathfinder in order to make that work and not frustrating for your players, for example.
I know you say you run D&D 3 the Pathfinder because of nostalgia, but how do you convince new players that they should play it?
I mean, nowadays that D&D 5th edition has been around for quite some time now, it's hard to convince someone, sorry, to buy this in order to make a first character. It's difficult, also because D&D, as I said, has been around quite a lot now, and people heard of it. Maybe they saw some campaigns streaming online, or maybe they heard some podcast. They got basically a simplified version of D&D in mind. You're not going to uh, propose them the hardcore version of it, hoping that they'll enjoy it. I mean, that might happen. I'm not saying it won't, but it's a tough challenge. It's a tough thing to do nowadays.
So, what are some things in the core rulebook of Pathfinder that you had difficulty wrapping your head around?
Something I found difficult on the main rulebook. I mean, the amount of synergies you may have, that's beyond reason. Because, as I said, let's take, for example, a level 10 character, so a medium powered character. So basically, you have at the very least 6 talents. Someone some of them may influence your bonus attack modifiers, some of them the damage, some of them may grant you bonus hit points or make you more skilled in something. Then you got magic. If you're a magic user, of course you got talents that affect some sort of spells, some kind of spells, maybe some controls one, maybe some damage. So you need to have, of course, all of this into mind, first and foremost, if you are the player. Because, I mean, you got 2 attacks at level 10, basically almost as any class. If you're going to spend half an hour just getting your hand around what influences what kind of dice you gotta throw, you gotta roll, sorry, etc. This is going to get pretty nasty on the other players sitting at your table. Being the dungeon master, of course, you need to know what your players do and what the monster does. So it's a lot to take in, basically a lot of notes, a lot of pictures of character sheets, etc. But sometimes that's not enough, because you read a talent, a feat, and you need to know what that is. Because maybe the players will forget, maybe they interpret it in a wrong way, that maybe they thought that was cool or right in the first place. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it breaks the game, etc. So the amount of notions is what it's a very strong entry barrier for the game, both as a player and as a DM, of course.
So why haven't you moved from Pathfinder First Edition to Second Edition then?
Because, as I said, nostalgia is a big part of it, and of course, it is the system we know better. So it is mainly our zone of comfort because we know the rules pretty consistently. We play that for way too many years now, so it's easier to say, okay, let's start a new Pathfinder 1 campaign. All right, I got a character on the tip of my fingers. Meanwhile, in Pathfinder Second Edition, you got an all other set of rules to memorize, understand, and get accustomed with. So it's maybe not that comfortable to start. I mean, we could, but we haven't done that yet. Maybe it will happen. Who knows?
A complaint I've heard about Pathfinder 1E is that since there's a rule for more or less everything, if you don't have a certain feat, you can't do certain actions. Is that true?
I mean, that's a little broad as a statement. I wouldn't say so. I may be a little bit rusty on this, but of course, as long as the DM allows it, you can do anything. Of course, you got bonuses if you got feats, etc., to do that. Otherwise, I mean, it's like me trying to juggle. I can't juggle. If I started juggling, maybe it will be easier on me. But yeah, that the fact that there's a rule basically for everything, I can. That is another point of that too many notions that I told you before. Yeah, mm, I kind of agree, but to an extent. Let's put it this way.
So do you own all the books for Pathfinder then?
Oh God, not. No, 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 no. They're way too much. They cost way too much money. I got the basic core rule book. I got the Dungeon Master Guide and an NPC code that gives you ideas and templates to build NPCs, villains, and so on. Makes it a little bit easier on you instead of customizing everything on taking character sheets and build a character from the ground up. Oh, just give me a second. I'm gonna show them to you. Just a sec. Okay. Okay. These two bad boys. The first one, I'm sorry, the Game Master Guide, and then the NPC Codex. So if you put them together, it's a lot. And these are not even the code tree manuals, but these are the ones that I believed at the time could help me better. But of course, with all the open source stuff you can find online, you can basically get around the news and feeds at the tip of your fingers, just typing on the internet.
If someone was to watch this video and be convinced by you to play Pathfinder, what advice would you give them?
I mean, as I said, basically, as the opposite of what I said since this interview started. If you're not scared of getting into a lot of source material, a lot of maths, and you feel confident that having basically, as you said a couple of minutes ago, a rule for everything may be a strong suit for you. May you feel comfortable having rules to guide your character actions, or the setting of the wars you're building, because this goes out to players and DMs alike, then Pathfinder is a valid option to D&D 3.5 in my opinion. But then again, if you are a casual player that plays once a month and wants something easy to spend the night with his friends, I suggest you focus your attention on something else.
Are there any other questions that you can think of that I should ask you about Pathfinder?
Oh God. You caught me off guard. I don't know. Well, that's not a question. There's a fun fact that I can give you. You know that our D&D is published by Wizard of the Coast, right? It is the same publisher of Magic the Gathering. What I never liked, I'm sorry to say that to any strong Magic or Wizard of the Coast or D&D fans that may look at this watch this video, is that in D&D rule books you don't have cool pictures. I mean, if I'm looking at a fantasy rule book, I'm looking for even inspiration for my characters. Maybe I got this OP in my OC, in mind, and I like to find a reference in stuff that I'm studying. And what I didn't get, I will never get my hand around, is you got amazing designers, amazing artists studying the pictures on Magic cards. Why couldn't you hire them to make a D&D manual? I mean, I don't know. I don't have any D&D books on me because I basically just play it. But for example, this is the cleric of Pathfinder. This is an amazing level of details and character study and design, etc. That is something I never, and I mean never, found on D&D 5th edition core rulebook, for example. So if you're into references for your campaign, for your OCs, have a look at the Pathfinder manuals. You got a lot of nice stuff to look at and to lay your eyes on, at the very least.
So
That's not a question you should have asked me, but I hope that is a point to what you asked me, at the very least.
So you've been playing Pathfinder for like over a decade then?
Oh God, I'm old. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Oh fuck. Yeah, not that much more of a decade, to be totally honest, but a lot, yes.
Other modules and campaign paths and the Pathfinder version of Adventurers League, are they well written?
Well, to be totally honest with you, everything I DM'd or played myself has been homebrew, almost all of it. So I'm not really an expert on adventure paths, scenarios published by Paizo or whatever. What can I tell you is that, well, I mean, of course, I'm on Pathfinder Reddits and Facebook groups, etc. And what I believe is that they are generally well received by the public that plays them. I just started, but I didn't manage to finish it because, of course, the pandemic ate everyone, and then we lost touch with this kind of people. But I started to DM the Strange Eons adventure path that, as the name suggests, is of course, Pathfinder 5th edition, but with a very strong wing to a Lovecraft-esque setting, you could say, because there were even additional rules for madness, for example, and the literal first boss that you fought at the end of the first book was a revisitation of an avatar of the King in Yellow. So, as you know, I play the Masks of Nyarlathotep with Jason and Becky and Ronnie and Phil that you previously interviewed, but that have a strong appeal to me. So that's why I started with that. But again, I managed to run the first half of the first book, and if I recall correctly, there were 2 or 3 of them. So I don't know how things evolve because I didn't get that much into it. But I'm also aware that people enjoy Wrath of the Righteous as an AP, as an adventure path, as you call it. But again, I almost exclusively played homebrew campaigns, so I'm not really the one to judge.
As the penultimate question, do you have any advice? Nope, different. I already asked that question. As the penultimate question, have you
Yes.
ever thought? Would it be easy for you to publish your own stuff for Pathfinder?
Easy to publish. Well, I'm not aware if there is an entity such as the Miskatonic repository for Call of Cthulhu, but for Pathfinder. So, is as in terms of means to have something you wrote published, I don't know. As in actually putting your head into it and writing something, yeah, of course, almost definitely. But that really goes to how much you enjoy the system and how much you know it and how much you believe in the story you're telling. But that goes for every RPG that you are playing or wishing to write for.
The question I like to end all my talks with is, do you have anyone or anything that you would like to shout out at this time?
Well, I'll take this chance I have for once again sending you, and I know you made a video about it, Fjook, the Mimics Belly Crafting Instagram page. That is my girlfriend, a friend of mine, and mine, sorry, project where we make custom dice. We made a couple of sets for Fjook here. It sounded pretty to enjoy that. To enjoy that. So maybe if you want to see what we made for him, you could follow the page. And then maybe you decide you want a set of dice and we'll ship it to you. No worries.
Thank you for your time. It's very hard to arrange to meet people who live in completely different time zones. And thank you for the people watching this. Do all the YouTube thing, like, comment, share, and have a good day.
And you, Fjook, thanks for having me, as always.